And we're back. The PCC Multiverse. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from the Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports, Fantasy Football, Game Source, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there, just checking out all of our great shows, all, 1,000 plus episodes all over from Pop Culture Cosmos, PCC Multiverse, State of Pro Wrestling, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, of course, the old Game Source stuff we have on there. Yeah, all that great stuff you can go ahead and find wherever you get your podcasts. 5-star review wherever you do it, and also as well the great radio stations around the world that play our show. Cannot thank you enough for doing so right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. It is indeed our Canadian in America celebrating the July 4th holiday weekend with her wonderful husband, indeed.
We celebrated with pickled margaritas last night. Hey!
What is more Americana than that? I will tell you. It's a good friend indeed. There was a reason. I was going to give you the update on what to look out for, the subjects for today's show, like last night. But I'm like, my guys, she's probably busy. She may be watching fireworks. Probably shouldn't send it to her. She probably won't see it. Little did I know, pickled margaritas was the reason why. There you go.
And I am moving a little slower than usual this morning. I will admit to that. This
fireworks indeed.
Oh man, this cup of tea is bringing me back to life slowly but surely.
There you go. But of course, it is our own inimitable wonder that she is. Of course, she is the mastermind, along with her husband, Robbie Ross. Of course, behind Vampires and Vitae, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, Wizards and Wine, and so much more. It is my good friend. It is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. And Melinda, great to have you back. July 4th weekend, people getting extra days off in many cases. I know some people are still working hard out there. Shout out to you. But looking forward to a great weekend of pop culture as always, my friend.
Absolutely.
So we have got a discussion later on in the show I really want to hit upon. And you talked about it with the show that on cable is actually doing very well. And on streaming too. It's also a streaming show as well. We'll talk about that. But there's some shows out there. Maybe it's the way streaming is or whatnot, but there's a lot of shows that have been canceled this year that found success early on in the streaming space and were not supported somehow, one way or the other, in the second season, third season, early on, and have found their way to cancellation. So we'll talk about, is that a trending problem for streaming outlets as opposed to cable and broadcast outlets? We'll go ahead and talk about their different approaches to where they keep on marketing shows coming up later on. It's a really interesting conversation I'd like to have with you on that. Plus also as well, what's hot at the box office right now that the box office and movie theaters are actually now reaping the rewards of some good stuff, what's out there this weekend. Also as well, speaking of streaming, what is the biggest news in streaming right now? We'll go ahead and talk about a trip down memory lane, nostalgia coming back to life in Beverly Hills Cop 4. That's coming up on the show, plus controversy in regards to the Horizon Zero Dawn series, which now will no longer take place on Netflix. That we'll talk about. And also, is Melinda up for some Dead Rising? We'll talk about that on this show as well. No, of course, if it's always
in no way tied to pickle margaritas, okay? In no way.
No way. But if it concerns deadish, vampire-ish, yeah, she's all in for that. We'll talk about that coming up on the show as well. But first, my friend, Despicable Me 4. That has already come out to theaters earlier this week to start and kick off the July 4th holiday. It's going to be very interesting to see how that performs because on the one hand, you have the Despicable Me series, a now tried and true dependable series between that and Minions, now grossing what several $billion, and this is expected to still do well at the box office, probably around $120 million for the 5-day weekend domestically, and probably over 300 million worldwide, as much as if you can say that, because it's so still popular of a series. And then you have the Inside Out 2, which has been performing extremely, extremely well, well beyond expectations. It was figured that by now, Despicable Me 4 comes out, Inside Out 2 would be an afterthought in theaters, but that is definitely not the case. It has garnered over $1 billion. I believe it's the fastest the animated movie that's gone there to $1 billion, the fastest. It could quite possibly end up being the highest grossing animated movie of all time. It is well beyond expectations. Your thoughts, because they approach these things as far as their stories in much different fashions. Inside Out 2, a little bit deeper, a little bit more thought out and thoughtful, while Despicable Me 4, with its minions subplots throughout the entire movie, and
Yeah,
also as well, of course, Gru doing something similar yet different in each and every movie. Similar in the fact that it ultimately leads to the same way and the same price, the same thing. He's always doing something villainous, and but still somehow finding a good heart at the end and doing something good at the end. Your thoughts on the diametrically opposing ways to tell a story, yet these two animated features going head to head seemingly will be doing so for the next few weeks until what, of course, Deadpool and Wolverine come out.
right. Yeah. I think that the magic that Inside Out 2 catches is that it's a way to take your kids to the movies and for them to walk away with perhaps, and maybe this is a little bit grandiose, but perhaps a little bit better of an understanding of themselves, of how they're feeling. And
Mhm.
it, I think it lends itself as well to a great tool perhaps for parents afterwards. Like if you have kids who have a hard time expressing themselves or explaining how they're feeling, then you can do that now just through the names of the characters. Like, are you, are you anger, are you the little red guy, are you joy, are you sadness, are you anxiety, like which of the characters are you feeling like the most right now? And I
Mhm.
just think that it's a great tool for parents after the fact, aside from the point that these are really well done movies. I think that they tell wonderful stories, and I think it's a great way. I've been saying it since the first movie. I think it's just such a smart tool to give to parents and to give to kids when it comes to them trying to figure out themselves and how they're feeling about stuff. And then you turn to Despicable Me 4, which is also really at the center of each of the movies, incredibly heartfelt. Sure, Gru for my book talk girlies could be considered morally gray, but he's like the lightest shade of morally gray.
Mhm.
He still has his villainous things and he still loves to be the bad guy, but our Gru is not a bad guy at this point. He's very much the hero. So I don't even think we could call him an anti-hero anymore, actually, after 4 movies. But I think that the introduction of Kristen Wiig's character and the way that that has all played out has been really well done and really well handled. It's a story that is can be as silly as you need it to be in terms of the minions and all of that stuff, and I think that it does also face some of the bigger complications that especially with this movie that families face when you have a family that's integrating together, because you have now Gru and I'm sorry, I can't remember the character's name, but they have a kid, I believe, in as
Yes.
this movie
Kristen
starts. So
Wiig's character. Yes.
right, so you have the 3 girls, and then you have the biological kid that comes along, and I'm sure that that's going to add some kind of layer to complication to that family dynamic, or at least will start to. I don't want to say lean into that exactly, but I'm sure that it does get addressed at some point through the movie. So I think that that also is very valuable, and there is something to get from that aside from just a funny movie with the adorable minions. I think that there's a lot to both movies.
So I ask you this, my friend, when it comes
Hmm.
to it, and once again, it is the PC Multiverse. It is Melinda Barkhouse Ross, along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks for watching, listening. Truly appreciate it. I mean, when you're dealing with young kids, and I don't want to say that watching the Minions or watching Despicable Me 4 will assist in the process of helping the kids. They're maybe not quite as good as others. Maybe boys will be boys.
Of
Naughty
course,
kids.
yeah,
Kids will be naughty every now and then. But
of course. So will
Despicable Me
adults.
4, Despicable Me 4, it kind of, I don't know, how should I say this? It kind of just it just kind of continues that attitude. It kind of perpetuates that attitude that, okay, it's kind of like, for instance, when you watch the Minions movies itself, that's just like 2 hours of nonstop. Uh,
Fart jokes.
yes, fart jokes and kids being bad. So expect the kids to be doing the same once
Yeah,
they get home because that's what they saw,
absolutely.
and shouting banana everywhere. But the same thing when they go see Despicable Me 4. Mind you, the minions are less on screen and they're more of a subplot as opposed to a overarching plot. But
Hmm.
still, they come in to save the day. They come in for those scene stealing moments during the
Yeah,
course of Despicable Me movies, and thus usually it's the lasting image that these kids, smaller kids, have once they leave the theater to again do the fart jokes and the
of
banana.
course. Yes, yeah. Be doo, be doo. I mean, all of that.
Whereas
It all for sure.
with Inside Out 2, it's deeper. It makes you think, and it's
Yeah.
something that probably kids won't resonate with right away unless they, resonate with one of the characters, but something that probably will stay with them
Hmm.
emotionally for a
Hmm.
long time to come. Whereas Despicable Me, they'll probably forget about it until the next Despicable Me comes. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
interesting how they approach it and what the long or short term effects are, where Despicable Me is more short term psychologically, whereas Inside Out or the Pixar, when Pixar really hits,
Yeah.
their storytelling really hits, it affects you for a long time to come.
Yeah. It sure does. I still, I mean, in between watching The Emperor's New Groove once a week, I will occasionally put on Inside Out instead because, I just think that it's in a funny way. And maybe this is going to go off into a bit of a tangent, and I don't mean it to if it does. So please reel me back in. But when you're watching those movies, it's almost like you're seeing, and maybe this is a bit much, but it's almost, maybe I'm too hungover for this, but it's like it's like you're learning that your emotions that live inside of you all of the time can save you. You can save yourself through your emotions if they're handled correctly. If they're done, if they're given the proper tools that they need in order to be able to keep up with how you grow. I think that there's a little bit of that maybe in those movies, and when you watch them, there's a weird. I mean, I'm saying this as a year old woman that that there's something reassuring when you watch those movies as an adult, at least to me. There's just something in them that is like, you know what? This is going to be okay. This is going to be fine. I am myself and me and all of those emotions that live in my head as these little characters now are going to be there to help get me through this. It's because so often we hear like anger is a bad emotion and anger is something that you should be fighting against. That's not necessarily always true. Sometimes you need to understand where the anger is coming from and why you're feeling it. And I think that these movies, and maybe again, this is being giving the movies a little bit too much credit or a whole lot too much credit, but it almost feels like the movies are giving you permission to be okay with those emotions that people tell you you should try to avoid or that you should try to not indulge in very often. And I think that these movies make it kind of okay for you to understand those and apply them to how you're feeling in any kind of situation. Now, I'm not saying that the kids are always going to have, or the adults are always going to have, like the movie playing in their head, but I think that the movie and giving characters to those emotions helps to identify it and helps you as the person to understand how to better deal with it, I think. And that's why I think that the movies are so successful.
I agree with you, but a good fart joke and banana every now and then ain't too bad either.
100%. And I feel like the Inside Out movies do that. I don't think it's all, gloom and introspection the whole time. There are those moments of real, fun, and
And
there are
levity
times.
and things of that nature, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is Pixar. So when it's gonna hit you in the feelings, like pull Kleenex out of your pocket because it's coming. Like it will happen in the movie. That's just how those movies are. And I hope that they never change that.
So it is a battle of the animated features this weekend. It is Inside Out 2 versus Despicable Me 4. We'll go ahead and hopefully on the Monday show give you the update on what's going on. Josh and I will come back right at you with what happened over the course of the July 4th weekend. But with the animated features for the families, they're out there and it's great because later on this month, it won't be so family oriented with Deadpool and Wolverine come out. But go ahead and share us your thoughts on Despicable Me 4 versus Inside Out 2. Which approach do you like better for your kids? Please let
Mm.
us know your thoughts. Pop Culture Cosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, nostalgia time because Hollywood just cannot stay away from nostalgia and bringing
Mhm.
back things from the 80s and 90s. In this case, it might not actually be such a bad thing with Beverly Hills Cop 4 being the number one movie right now on Netflix. I had a chance to go ahead and uh, look and see on Netflix what was playing, what was hot, and Beverly Hills Cop 4 has arrived. It arrived on the 3rd. It is, again, the number one movie right now on Netflix. Your thoughts on this, returning to this series? I know I'm going to discuss it more with Josh. That'll be our franchise that faces the franchise, the Beverly Hills Cop franchise. That'll what we'll talk about more in detail on Monday. But I want to hear your thoughts on BHC 4 to see if it's something that, after all these years, is it still appealing for you to watch?
You know, I think so. And I think it's largely because of Eddie Murphy. I think that that's really the only reason, right?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, the movies were funny back in the day. Absolutely, I can remember, watching them with dad and, um, all that kind of stuff when I was growing up. But I don't really remember there being it's
It's not a
it's
deep plot. This is
no, I
the
was just gonna say it's almost Despicable Me 4. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, in terms of the depth of the movie. Really, you're there to watch Eddie Murphy crack some jokes. You're there for the Eddie Murphy laugh. You're there for the member berries when, the things just are gonna hit the right way. You're gonna see him in the jacket. You're gonna see all of that stuff. So, I think that as long as the nostalgia is done correctly and it's done in a way that acknowledges the past, but you know firmly plants the franchise, or at least that one movie, in a direction that feels like it's moving forward, then I think that they can do it successfully. It's when they do it and it feels pointless while you're watching it that the nostalgia gets ruined, I think.
I believe the same screenwriter who wrote Bad Boys Ride or Die, which is still
Mm,
seeing decent volume at the box office and is got to be considered a commercial success, is the same one for BHC4. And if that's the
yeah.
case, I don't find that to be an accident as far as it's concerned, because the thought process for each seemingly to keep these long running franchises, or in some cases, long dormant franchises, still around, still relative, still relevant, still popular, and not looking like they're tired, old, just cash grabs.
Hmm.
I think that takes a lot of doing, and that's, I think, from what we're seeing with BHC4 is the people just embracing it warmly, and it seems to be like a just as like what we saw with Bad Boys Ride or Die being a commercial success at the box office. this looks like it's going to be a huge success for Netflix.
Well, think about when you run into that friend that you haven't seen in 20 years at like the
Mhm,
grocery store, and you
mhm.
you have that little chit chat and you leave that conversation, usually feeling pretty good, and it's going to take you back to some of the hijinks or some of the trouble or just the good times that you had with this person. And I feel like that's what those movies do, specifically the ones that capture things like the way that Beverly Hills Cop did. It captures a feeling or an attitude or something. I can't put my finger on it, of the 80s. And I think that as long as that movie acknowledges that, but forces things again into present day and finds a way to balance those two things, and I think that that's where the success lies. I think that's the secret sauce, because it's not always done well, and if it's not done well, it fails miserably as a movie.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been so many franchises trying to be brought. The Fall Guy, which is loosely
Yeah,
based off the '80s TV show, that got positive reviews. Ryan Gosling thought that was going to be a slam dunk home run. Came on the first week of May, which is usually one of the biggest weekends of the year. That
yeah,
tanked
yeah.
miserably. Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. The reason
Mm,
why I throw that one in there is because Sony kept on trying to throw darts at the Ghostbusters franchise. They brought back, the all female cast. That didn't work out, unfortunately. They came back with the last rebooted Ghostbusters earlier this decade. That was a hit, but when they tried to do it again with the Frozen Empire, it didn't fall on quite the same success that they had done before. It's so funny because they didn't. People seem to have a short memory sometimes, because if BHC3, I worked on that, and I'll tell Josh more about it on Monday. I worked on that film a
right.
long time ago, working for the special effects, just wire removal, simple wire removal, just a few shots, nothing elaborate. But just the response to that movie at that time, that killed the
Yeah,
franchise on how bad that movie was. Same thing with Ghostbusters 2. That movie was so bad that it killed the franchise for decades. So
yeah.
people have just like this memory. They don't remember. They just know the name. And in this case would be Beverly Hills Cop. You bring out Eddie Murphy on the poster, you make him put him right there front and center, you have him doing Eddie Murphy things, and
Yep.
if you do it in the right way, you can bring back that nostalgia. It's
Mhm.
formulaic. I
Of
will
course.
be giving you my full review of it on Monday, but yeah, it's formulaic, and it looks like something that, again, you know what you're getting into if you've seen Beverly Hills Cop before. And if that's the case, you're getting more of it here. And that isn't necessarily such a bad thing.
Yeah, well, no, I think that any chance that we get to, and I've just realized that 20 years ago was only 2000. What year is it? 2004. So I needed to go like another 20 years back.
It's
I needed to
30 years.
Yeah. Whoa. Just give me a minute. I gotta absorb that one. But no, they I think that this is a great opportunity. I hope they don't try to do a fifth, because you run into
Oh
that
no, they
person
will
that
do a fifth now.
but you run into that person that you haven't talked to in apparently 30 years. You have your conversation. You don't necessarily need to talk to them again.
Oh, you know
You know what I
Netflix.
mean?
You know
Yeah.
Netflix. You know
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah.
The,
It's
the thing is,
incredibly true, but gee whiz.
the thing I will say though, I'm impressed with Netflix sometimes. When Netflix wants to, they
Mhm.
will dish out the cash
Yeah.
for a project like The Gray
Yeah.
Man. I remember that. That was they've spent a huge amount of money. Irishman, they spent a huge amount of money. This movie, even though it's film parts, LA, things of that nature, you saw it. This movie is not cheap because a lot of practical stunts were done, with
Mm.
the use of
Yeah.
a helicopter, crashing a helicopter, flying helicopter in areas, vehicles. This was not a lot as much CGI and just a green center in front of a green screen and go at it. This was a lot of actual destruction of vehicles and property, which totals up the bank dollars, which means that Netflix, when it really wants to do something, it will put out the cash in doing so.
Yeah, they definitely saw something in the script that they felt was worth investing in. Perhaps it's just having Eddie Murphy attached to it. I don't know, but there was definitely something that they were like, "Yeah, let's go all in on this one and see what happens."
So it is Beverly Hills Cop 4. Josh and I will be talking more about it on Facing the Franchise. I wanted to hear your thoughts on it. So please let us know your thoughts as well out there. What are your thoughts? Are you catching BHC4 this weekend or have you already? What are your thoughts on returning to the world of Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy reprising the role? A lot of the famous stars from those movies are back again to reprise their roles as well. How much was this trip down nostalgia lane, or in this case, down Rodeo Drive, good for you? Please let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. And before we hit the break, my friend, wanted to touch on the Horizon Zero Dawn, a Netflix controversy. Does not look like now for those who are really amping up for Horizon Zero Dawn to be coming on TV or Netflix or a show comes sometime soon. Gonna have to wait and see if it goes somewhere else because the showrunner is mired in some controversy.
Mm.
Creator of Umbrella Academy, or the Umbrella Academy showrunner, excuse me, Steve Blackman, he is embroiled in a controversy in regards to harassment and things of that nature, is toxic bullying, really bad HR stuff there is going on. It's a shame because the Horizon Zero Dawn series, I'm not a big fan of it. But I think I would have watched the Netflix series because I think even though I don't want to play the Lego game that's coming out, I really think I would have kind of liked to enjoy that game transformed onto the big screen, but I don't think I'm going to get it anytime soon.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. It looks like they hedged their bets on the wrong guy this time. Excuse me. Hang
Yeah.
on. Let me.
Well,
Sorry, I was just
again,
looking at.
well, no, because it's really bad because these type of things, these toxic workplaces, they're no longer tolerated in our society, and that's a good thing. But ultimately leads to projects like this, good ideas that now may never come out on screen.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, I'm of two minds about it because I worked in broadcasting. I've worked in toxic buildings, and I don't mean that the building was sick. I mean the people inside of it were just not easy to work with. And I think that I admire the chutzpah, I suppose, of people who get into contracts and things like that and realize that the thing that they're working on or the thing that they're a part of is not healthy and it's not good for them to be part of, and they call it out and they blow the whistle. I admire that. I think that that's good work. I don't think that that should stop. But I think that there is a part of us that forgets, and this is not an excuse, but it's going to be a pretty weird statement. I think that there are creatives who are naturally abrasive, who are naturally difficult, and it's for no other reason than they just live so much inside of their own heads and live so much in these ideas that they have. And I think that there's a large portion of people that just forgets sometimes when they're working on projects that there are actual human beings around, and the fact that your latte was delivered to you cold is not reason for you to abuse everybody on set. It's again, it's a weird statement to kind of make, but I just feel like there is, God, I don't want to say a level of understanding because that's not fair either, for people who are on the other side of it. But I think that there just is a certain type of creative person that gets involved in some of these projects that is just difficult. And I think that we have people who are just difficult to work with. And I think that if we're going to continue to move forward and continue to get great content and great ideas like this one, I think that I'm not saying we have to put up with the bad behavior, but maybe a little bit of patience. I don't know because I don't really know exactly what it was that was happening, and I'm sure that it was awful, and I'm sure that it was terrible to deal with. Nobody likes to see anybody else get yelled at. Nobody likes to be yelled at. Nobody likes to be put into a position where they feel less than. Um, but I think that sometimes you just get so caught up, and the stakes are so high in the entertainment industry, and you're given all of this money to pull off this project. And if for the third time that person ends up in the shot and you've told them to move, they're going to get yelled at. I mean, that's just, I don't want to say that's just how it is, but that is kind of how it is. I Weird. I know. I'm not saying that the toxic behavior is okay, and I'm not condoning it. Please don't think that. Just that there sometimes I'm not
You're
sure
talking about a
where I'm
level
coming
of
from.
acceptance.
Yeah, I think so. And I understand that the knee-jerk reaction is to no, like none of that behavior is acceptable at all. But folks have bad days. Folks had bad years. Folks have a bad few months. You never know what folks are going through. You don't know what pressure is put on people. And again, that's not an excuse for folks to lash out and be awful. But I think that there's a bit of, as you put it, understanding that people need to have if you're going to be working with this group of people, because it's not like it's the same building working on the same projects all of the time. Every project has a different group of people, and that group of people needs to figure out how to navigate each other. And if you're not all willing to figure out how to navigate each other, then your project is going to be terrible to work on.
So I ask you this, okay, maybe is it because maybe for us we're at a different life because you said you've worked in toxic environments. Unfortunately, I have had as well,
Hmm.
and I've seen and heard a lot over the years. And you know, I see people, they don't speak up when they need to in some
Yeah.
cases. I've had to
Yep.
intervene when I was, like I said, a manager on several occasions where I've had to intervene in these type of situations as far as
Hmm.
people that are being mistreated. You got to go ahead and speak up for them if they're not speaking up for themselves. Is it an age factor because of our generation maybe is more tolerant of these type of things? Younger generations are ready and quicker to say, you know what, I don't need to deal with this. I don't have the time for this and I don't need to deal with this. And maybe that's really a good thing because the sooner you
Absolutely.
report these toxic environments, the better off
Hmm.
your workplace will be.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, please, I'm not trying to make excuses for the people who
No,
are have this bad behavior,
but
but
you and I have been more tolerant because we've lived through so many toxic environments because the
yeah.
way the world was.
Mm.
Maybe it is better now that they're changing as far as for a better environment in the workplace for everyone.
Yeah, if you haven't been hollered at in a workplace and you are above the age of 35, congratulations.
Yeah, I agree with you
You
there.
know,
I
that's
because I have been hollered at, and
uh-huh.
those are not pleasant,
No.
and especially
Uh-uh.
when it's not justified, it is
Mhm.
truly not pleasant.
Yep.
I have been on the receiving end of that. I tried to make my way to make sure that people were treated fairly. It's funny because a lot of people, some people have come up to me now. And they said the way you used to run things and the way you used to manage is the way people do it now in a PC friendly environment. But the way
Right.
you were doing it was maybe not always the most popular because you were not laying the heavy hand. Well, I said, because I was treating people
Right.
like human
Right. Yeah.
beings,
Yeah.
and with
Imagine,
people
right?
respect. And I
Yeah.
felt that was the way to get things done better and more efficiently was to ask
Mhm.
people or be respectful people in a respectful fashion. To do it still today in today's environment and still treat people like garbage or people you think you're going to yell people and threaten them with job or trying to come across as intimidating, that only goes so far because all these days now it just takes one direct interaction with HR or the right individuals to
Yep.
the right workplace or social media or whatnot, and there the controversy starts. And as we're seeing with this project and another project that the Umbrella Academy showrunner had in place and the deal lined up with Netflix, looks like it's gone to the wayside. Hopefully this teaches him a lesson. Whatever comes out of this, hopefully
Right.
it teaches him a lesson that he needs to be, you can deny all you want right now as he's doing on in the press and as he's doing on social media, but he needs to approach his future projects if he's given the opportunity to do future projects in a completely different fashion.
Yeah, and I think that that's the trouble, right? Is that a leopard doesn't always change its spots. So when
Well,
you
it
have
better in
somebody,
this environment.
well, yeah, that's kind of that's yeah. So you have these people who are used to hollering at people on set, or they're used to being direct and decisive in their direction, and that doesn't always land well on the other side of the conversation. So I think that when you have to figure out how to adjust, I guess, your management style. And if you can't adjust, then you're not going to get a chance to play in the big show. Really.
Mhm.
It's just
Absolutely, 'cause
that's how things are shaken out these days. And
'cause and then
again,
because Netflix, if Net let's say Netflix is behind it, if they, continue with the project with this guy on
yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn, whatnot, and something goes wrong HR-wise, guess who gets sued along with that showrunner?
Yeah.
Netflix. So these
Yeah.
these corporations are now much more, observant of, and much more, ready to go ahead and act if something they don't like, if they think that's too toxic, they'll jump off of it right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel that that is correct. I'm not, again, I'm not trying to defend the toxic people, but I'm just trying to say, like, maybe
But
a
you and
little
I
bit
are
of
more
understanding.
tolerant of it because we're
I
older and we've been
suppose.
through it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
maybe
I
that's
suppose
to our
so.
detriment. Maybe that is to
Yeah,
our
probably.
detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
'cause,
probably is because
yeah.
I'm not that I can handle being yelled at because it still makes me feel like an absolute loser, but I think that there might be a little bit more. I might be willing to accept a little bit more of that than say somebody who is 20 years younger,
Okay, I agree, and
you
that
know?
may and again, if that's a better work environment, that's creating something that's better for the workplace, you know what? More power to the younger generations if that's the case. But,
Yeah.
when, Robbie doesn't get your pickled margarita on time, do you provide a toxic workplace for him? Is it toxic?
Never. It's only if my breakfast is a little bit late, then I get a little
Okay,
snarly.
then
Yeah,
you
but
start
I mean,
yelling at him. Okay.
yeah, I blame that on the morning though, you know? It's
Okay.
the mornings are so rough, they're so hard, and people don't understand.
Oh, wait, I got a call
I'm
from H
kidding. Yeah,
I got a call from HR here. "Oh,
yeah,
yes, Robbie." About Melinda? Oh,
yeah, yeah.
pickled margaritas. Okay, alright, there you go. But,
No,
it
I'm
all
kidding. Please, I'm kidding. I do not yell at my husband, please, I don't
okay,
do that.
fair enough, fair enough. But in all kidding aside, it is, of
Yeah,
course, the pop culture gospel. We wanted to bring this, semi-serious, really serious, excuse me, really serious
yeah,
subject in regards to it because it is a serious subject because there's still things going on. There are still individuals out there that are trying to act like old Hollywood that don't
yeah,
understand this is a new Hollywood. And if they don't understand how to act appropriately in this new environment, they'll get left behind.
yeah. I agree. And
So,
it's to
yeah,
their detriment always, every time.
every time. But we'll find out what's going on as far as the controversy from Umbrella Academy showrunner Steve Blackman. Now, the Umbrella Academy is already finishing off its series. When it comes out, it'll be its final season. And we'll be talking about final seasons for shows here in a second. But what are your thoughts out there on Horizon Zero Dawn? Do you ever think it's going to come to a screen near you? Please let us know your thoughts on if you think that somebody else should take over the reins and be allowed to go ahead and present Horizon Zero Dawn on the screen, whether it's on Amazon, Netflix, or wherever. Please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still a little bit more to talk about before we head on out. Outer Range, a show that actually got off to gangbusters as far as eyes, attention, ratings. As far that was a kind of like a Western meets sci-fi motif. Starred Josh Brolin. That was on Amazon. Really started strong on the streaming service, and
Mhm.
then second season came around. Didn't really advertise it much. Stop me if you've heard this before from me this year. Didn't really advertise it much, didn't really promote it much. Wasn't the shiny new toy that it was last season.
Yeah,
So it didn't get the kind of bub and people didn't go back to it. They didn't watch it. And thus it got canceled in its second season. Winning Time got a lot of acclaim, which followed by the way. Winning Time was a show that chronicled the Lakers in the 80s. Got a lot of acclaim. People were watching in the first season. Really good performances. Second season came around. Didn't promote it well. HBO, Max, Warner Brothers, whatever you want to say, didn't promote it well for the second season. Many people didn't even know it's out, didn't watch it. Guess what? Got canceled. As far as Our Flag Means Death, a lot of people in that first season loved it, absolutely loved this Taika
So good.
Waititi person. Yes, so good. Everybody was following it. Fall in love with it, laughters, great comedy. Second season came around, wasn't really promoted well, didn't get watched enough, and it got canceled after 2 seasons. This seems to be a reoccurring trend, and believe me, I am very concerned with Severance coming out later this year because it is making me really nervous that Apple TV will not give it its proper due. But be that as it may, there's a ton of shows that have been canceled, especially in the streaming environment, after 2 or 3 seasons because it didn't continuously get the love from fan bases. Part of that I'm going to put in regards to the streaming service itself. Tokyo Vice is probably, in my opinion, the biggest mistake by HBO Max, whatever you want to say. I told you that as of now, and I'm going to give people a little bit of a heads up. It is my favorite pop culture thing of the year, Tokyo Vice, right now, season 2. I thought it was the best made season, or if anything, just again, I make Doom Part 2. I'm gonna have to go ahead and watch each again, just make sure. So it's a okay, I guess a dead heat between those two, but again, it is really good, and it got canceled. So your thoughts on this, my friend, because TV broadcast and cable seem to do a better job of promoting and sustaining and staying with shows to keep on telling people that they're out there. Yet streaming does not seem to have the attention span to doing so as well. The companies don't have the attention span, so you're going to probably have the audience not have the same attention span as well. Your thoughts on this, because it is not just one show that's happening to, 2 shows, 3 shows. It's quite a few of these streaming shows. Arcane on Netflix, award-winning show, animated show. It's already being done with that after its second season on Netflix. So your thoughts on this, my friend, on why this continuous lack of attention or attention span by streaming outlets primarily with these shows?
Well, Gerald, what happens if they do actually do all of the promotion and stuff that they're supposed to, but so many people buy the tier of streaming where you don't get ads? So you're not going to see a promo that season 2 for XYZ show comes out in 3 weeks. So of course you're not going to be aware of when the show drops. Perhaps that's part of it. I
Well,
think
let me
that
ask you this, though. Let me ask you this.
okay.
You knew House of the Dragon season 2 when that was coming up, didn't you?
I did not. I knew it was coming
Oh,
out
wow.
this summer because I mean, I have eyeballs and I read the internet for like a hobby.
Okay. But you know
so
it's coming out
so
this summer.
absolutely.
It's now out
It
there.
was already 3 episodes in before I was like, "Oh crap, that show's out. We better watch that and get
Well,
caught up."
it's 2 episodes in, but third is coming up this weekend. But
Right.
you, at least you knew that there were trailers coming out that you saw, and you said it's coming out this summer. Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
Ugh.
You know that's coming up down the line from Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
but I think that those are coming out on platforms that have at least the banner ads when you open
okay.
up the app,
But
right?
but the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, Amazon, and of course HBO Max also could have done the same for Tokyo Vice. Could
I
have done
feel
the
like
same for Our Flag Means Death. They
I
could
think
have
of
put
all
the
of them.
same kind of love for those shows as well. Winning Time. could have
Mhm.
done the same thing for that one as well?
I think that Max is the worst of all of them as far as trying to get um, information to people who are watching the shows. I don't know how to better explain that. Like our flag means death. The fact that there was a season out and I had no idea and I loved the show, to me,
Mhm.
that's something incorrect as far as Max goes. I should, as a consumer of their stuff, of their product, I should be incredibly well informed, especially because I have a subscription. I don't know if that needs to start coming in the form of perhaps some email marketing. That's probably incredibly passe at this point. I don't know if Facebook marketing is the answer. I don't know if having advertisements on Discord when it comes to those shows and things like that. I
Running
don't know if that
trailers before the show that you're watching.
or during. I mean, I know that again, we all understand that we can get the tier that helps us not see advertisements, right? But
Mhm.
I wouldn't be opposed to, a 55-minute show having a 2-minute break in the middle of it so I can run to the potty and we get to watch a trailer for a show that's coming out that is relevant to the show that I'm watching, right? Like if I'm watching House of the Dragon, I might not be super interested in a show that's based on a sport, but I would definitely be interested in something else that is of the supernatural or fantasy genre. So I think that they should be a little bit smarter about their targeting ads, maybe. Maybe that's the answer. More targeted advertisement. Um, but I just feel like when you open up the app, you should be so well informed with everything that's coming out, when it's coming out, where it's coming out, how long it's going to be. I should be able to go into the app and I should be able to look at interviews with the, season 2 of whatever is coming out. Here's a sit down with the cast or something like that. Like there's no hype, there's no confetti cannon. There's no hey, we're doing a thing, come and see it. There's no jazz hands. There's no pomp and circumstance. And of course things are getting canceled because people aren't watching it because they have no idea it's even out. It's crazy. What a breakdown in the system.
It is. Disney Plus and Hulu, let's say. They've had success with Only Murders in the Building. That has been
Yeah.
very successful. They've managed to promote that enough so that people know when it's coming out. The Bear on FX Hulu. That one is a hybrid because of the fact that it's on a cable. They
Yes.
use the FX monitor, but it's still also shown immediately on Hulu as well, or the day after, whatever. But and Disney Plus, I believe it's also goes through so that hybrid. Shogun though, Shogun came out to rave reviews, really large audiences. Also was just really good vibes from that, and it's going to be up
Mhm.
for Emmys. It's going to be up for just really good stuff. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. I am concerned that when they're already talking about a second and a third season for this, so I already have concerns about that because now you're going beyond what the author had intended for this.
And we learned with Game of Thrones that that is a terrible idea, sir.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to ask you your thoughts on this. Could that fall easily into the same trap that some of
Mhm.
as many of these other shows that come out with strong viewership, lot of acclaim, yet by their second season they're out of work?
It's a whimper. Yeah, I do. I think that a lot of it comes down to your marketing and your advertising and making sure that people both know that another season is coming out and give me some kind of reference November 2024. So then and remind me, oh my God, like remind me that it's November 2024 when this thing is going to happen that it should be an event. It should be a hey, this new season is back November 2024. Every time that I see Shogun written anywhere in any kind of media, it should make reference to season 2 November 2024. Like it should be synonymous. It should almost be like the name of the show is extended by when the show comes back. And I think that might help a little bit across all media. And if the media doesn't agree to do with it, then they don't get access to my stars. Period.
Because it's an investment, I understand, for them, but it's also an investment for you
Yeah.
when it comes to the
That's my
time that
time.
you take. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know. It really gets me sometimes the way that some of these shows, which are some of the cases really good shows, highly acclaimed shows, Tokyo Vice, Winning Time, especially Max seems to be the most egregious at doing this, but
Yeah.
Netflix doesn't get a pass because they do it as well. If it doesn't meet the certain number hours watched, I think broadcast is a little bit more lenient at times because of, they're sometimes willing to let things play out if it's like on the fringe. CSI Vegas, they let on the fringe, but for 2 seasons,
Yeah.
it was like on the fringe that before they finally in the fourth season said, we're going to have to let it go. They had other shows like that. If it's on the fringe, they kind of let things slide depending on how it goes, and they sometimes truncate seasons, things of that nature. But they still give life to these shows. When it comes to streaming shows, it's cut and dry. And you're talking
Mhm.
about most of these shows are only 6 to 10 episodes long. The
Yeah.
Acolyte right now on Disney Plus, Star Wars. I don't know how well that's doing. I don't know if I want to watch another season of it, but there for a lot of people that may want to watch another season of it, who knows how well it'll be promoted down the line if they do.
Yeah, and I just think that the promotion of your own content is critical. And maybe I'm just taking, my my idea, my thought from radio. Because when you listen
Mhm,
to a radio station, you know everything that that radio station is up to. You
mhm.
know that they have a top 7 at 7 o'clock. You know that their morning show is going to the next morning talk about something ridiculous that happened to one of the hosts. The self promotion is so important and it's so key, and you have to be doing it on the app first and then be looking outwards from there, because the assumption, right, with a radio station when they're doing their advertisements is that the people listening to your radio station want to be part of your radio station. So you give them events and you give them appointment tuning, so they know when a specific thing that is going to amuse them is going to happen, or something that is going to be compelling for them to listen to is going to happen, or let's say your radio station is celebrating some kind of anniversary or a birthday, or something along those lines, and you're doing something for your listeners. If you're not advertising on your own radio station, you're not advertising to your audience. So if you're not taking advantage of these people who are coming to your apps like Max or Disney Plus and Hulu or and whatever, then you're not appealing to the audience that's already coming to your service for something. It's cross pollination for all of those shows that you have on there. It's wild to me that that's not done better.
Well, we'll see. Again, I do have concerns with the way that they're promoting it. These shows are promoted, especially on streaming services like Jackson and the Olympians. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, big hit for Disney Plus. Will that see success in the second season? Depends on how much love it gets from Disney Plus. But a show before we head on out that is getting some love is Interview with a Vampire. That is getting a third season. Your thoughts on this before I ask you, are you up for return to Dead Rising before we head on out?
Okay, so Interview with a Vampire. If you caught a couple of episodes of the first season and you were, because I've heard some like Anne Rice diehards who don't really enjoy the changes that they made, because they did update the show a little bit. Like Louis is in the 1920s instead of the 1800s. Um, it's very much centered in the jazz kind of era of New Orleans, and so the first season, it feels familiar. It feels like Anne Rice, but they've definitely updated it. And I think that the reason why it's so successful is because Christopher Rice and Anne herself were both part of, and I mean, they were very involved with all of those kind of changes and adjustments that they made along the way for the show and updating the story. Um, the second season blows the first season out of the water. It's phenomenal. I just finally managed to watch the season finale, and it's so good. And I'm so excited for season 3. But that is a great example of a show that is on a streaming service as well as cable television that to me is still flying a little bit under the radar. I think it could be a little bit more boisterous about itself. I think that it has cut its teeth enough. I think that the stars of the show, Jacob Anderson and Sam Reed as Lestat, Are you kidding me? Tom Cruise who in some of those scenes. It's so good. If you haven't watched it, please give it your time. It's really worth it. It really is.
And if you have thoughts on Interview with the Vampire, any of the shows that we talked about, you hurt by some of the cancellations, please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode as always, but Capcom is, timing is everything. So Capcom decided they wanted to stay away from the not E3, could be E3, should be E3, always will be E3, but is it E3 time frame? They wanted to do it in their own little niche, their little Capcom event. Oh, it was so cute, but everybody didn't see it because they didn't put it around the time everybody else was doing their press conferences. So whatever. Capcom in and of itself is sometimes hard to figure out, but outside of announcing Resident Evil 9 is in production, they, I guess, put out there, which got the most eyes on it, is a return to the Dead Rising series. Your thoughts? Because a Dead Rising, I don't think it's a remake, I don't know, remaster, whatever you want to say. It's the remaster of the 2006 Dead Rising game that was so fun to deal with killing zombies by the hundreds, by the thousands, in a shopping mall gone wrong. Your thoughts on returning possibly to a world of Dead Rising?
Well, you know how I feel about zombies in general. They are my least favorite of all monsters. I don't like them. I there's something about them that is so well, and I guess rightfully so, incredibly unnerving for me. I don't even like the sound effects of zombies. It just grosses me out. Um, with that said, I personally prefer Killing Floor to the that particular series, Dead Rising, myself. But I also like
So
to be
you
in the
don't want to get
middle
a
of.
shopping cart and just grab a whole, maybe
No, I
mow
know.
down
No, I just
hundreds
wanna
of.
get I wanna get in the middle of way too many zombies, and I just wanna, like, machine gun them all down.
You
That's what I
can
wanna
do
do.
that here and too if you get the right.
Yeah, there's just something about Killing Floor that feels a little bit more pure when it comes to that. I'm not sure what
Okay.
that is.
Okay. Yeah,
But,
well, that's the thing with Dead Rising. It is goofy. The
yeah,
best of
and
Dead
it's
Rising is
yeah,
goofy. Yeah. Later episodes, it didn't get so goofy, and I think that's why it kind of tanked. But
yeah,
the first one and the second one are kind of goofy, like Saints Row meets
right.
Left 4 Dead.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts out there on returning to the world of Dead Rising? Please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, Melinda, feeling the effects now, kind of wavering off, having her tea
Mhm.
from those pickled margaritas
Yeah.
and the
Woo.
toxic environment that your husband provides by saying, "Here's another pickled margarita."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But all kidding
Lead the
aside,
leadable, Robbie. Lead the leadable, sir. What a
exactly. Well,
guy.
I got to get back on the show because we will need a Warhammer update here in the not too distant future. But any
Oh, he's
last thoughts, my
dying
friend?
for it.
Well,
Last thoughts.
yes, before we head on out.
Last thoughts. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna harp on Interview with a Vampire again. If you haven't watched it, if you haven't given it any of your time, or if you only caught the first couple of episodes and you felt a little underwhelmed, please do give it a second look. The honestly, I loved the second season, and I think the Daniel Malloy character and his level of sass is phenomenal. I loved it. I just yeah, it was great, and I'm so excited for season 3. Do we get to see Marius in season 3? He's my favorite of all of Anne Rice's vampires. So give me some Marius and make him attractive. I'm probably going to be okay with it. Just throwing that out there if anybody's listening.
That and maybe seeing it through a pickled margarita might help as well.
Well, if season 3 is bad, pickle margaritas might be necessary.
There you go. But once again, it is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. Please check her out today at Vampires Vitae, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and Wizards and Wine. So from Melinda Barkhouse Ross, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great